Ladies and gentlemen, the Cartesian Theist has posted a video called Rand Fails to Disprove God. Now, I wasn't going to pay any attention to it, wasn't going to watch it, but someone did leave a comment on my page saying that I should do something about it. And I watched his video and it is completely ignorant. It is really silly. It'll just take a couple minutes here. He doesn't understand anything about objectivism. He doesn't even understand philosophy because he comes at it from from apparently a Cartesian direction, according to him. So the title of the video is Rand Fails to Disprove God. And first of all, let's just say she never tried to disprove God. As she noted, you can't be called upon to prove a negative. So what she said was, there's no evidence for God. And what Peikoff said in a more elaborate way in his book, Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand, he said you have to dismiss the arbitrary. If someone just comes up with the stupidest thing you've ever heard, you can't scratch your chin and say, oh, well, maybe that's true. So if someone comes up with something that is just insane and there's no evidence, then you don't say maybe it's true. You just say, you are talking nonsense, and you walk away until some evidence is brought. So she didn't try to prove the non-existence of God. That's an absurd idea. His opening salvo at 10 seconds, and there's no voice, this isn't a debate. It's one of those very annoying videos that is just words and some song in the background, pictures. His opening salvo. Objectivists think that they can prove the non-existence of God a priori. Well, as I've just said, we can't prove the non-existence of God. We don't think we can. We've never made that claim. And to do it a priori, that's ridiculous. That means before any evidence, before the five senses are taken into account. Objectivism doesn't believe there's anything a priori. Well, objectivism's a philosophy. It doesn't have any beliefs. But objectivists don't believe in anything a priori. So how would they think they could prove the existence of God wrong a priori? They don't believe in anything a priori. You see what an ass this guy is, a complete ass. At 30 seconds into it, he says, Objectivism is based on several axioms which are said to be known through logic. Not true. Logic is something that was created by taking several examples of this thing Aristotle saw people doing, and he took this example, and another example, took away the things that are not common to them, and had left only what was common to them, the essentials, only what was there in every case. And what was there in every case was a system of thinking that Aristotle called logic. So, logic comes about by noticing the way we act in reality, seeing several instances of people acting in reality, and they come out to be correct in the end, so that the methods that they used must have been correct. You investigate what those methods are, omit the measurements, and you have logic. So logic comes after knowledge. And for these axioms to be known through logic would mean that they are known then somehow through the senses, is what that means. And the axioms are known through the five senses. In fact, we're going to go to page 55 of the Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology by Ayn Rand. An axiomatic concept is the identification of a primary fact of reality which cannot be analyzed. It's like putting the two pens next to each other. There's one, now there's two. There's no analysis needed. And anyone who says, are you sure that you have two pens when you're holding two pens, is an ignoramus. Anyone who says, are you sure you exist, when you tell them that you do, is an ignoramus. Anyone who says, are you sure that you're conscious, maybe you're just a dream, they're an ignoramus. Anyone who says, are you sure you are what you are, maybe you're a striped zebra in sub-Saharan Africa, they're an ignoramus. Those are the axioms right there, those three. So they are known through the senses. Logic is figured out through the senses. There is nothing a priori. Nothing is known a priori. Let's see if there's a little bit more we need. The peculiarity in axioms lies in the fact that they are perceived or experienced directly, but grasped conceptually. You see, an animal has no grasp of axioms, but a human does, because we have concepts. Axioms, however, are an extremely, extremely advanced concept. You have to have a whole bunch of other concepts already on the table, already formed, already understood in your mind, before you can grasp what an axiom is. Why is this true? You have to know a lot about a lot of different areas of reality before you can come to some sort of a conception about all of reality. And that is what an axiom is a conception about everything, forever, in the past and the future. That's not something a baby can understand, or even a young child, or even a Christian. But if you're rational and you're an objectivist, you can come to understand that everyone who's conscious is conscious, that everything that exists is what it is. It's not something else, and it can't poof into or out of existence and can't be wished one way or the other. He just doesn't understand anything about objectivism or philosophy. He's an ignoramus. He's an ass, this guy, Cartesian theist. He doesn't understand anything about objectivism, and to go off saying these stupid things like objectivism is based on axioms that are said to be known through logic. Who said that? That's ridiculous. Now, 2 minutes and 16 seconds. A quote from Bill Vallicella. V-A-L-L-I-C-E-L-L-A. I don't know who he is, never heard of him. Quote, for Peikoff to get the result he wants, the non-existence of God, from the premise that existence exists, he goes on from that. No, we don't get the non-existence from God, the non-existence of God, from the premise that existence exists. They're completely separate. Completely. The axioms do not prove the existence or non-existence of God. Any definition you give of God will violate one of the axioms. That's true. But the axioms don't disprove or prove the non-existence of God. Frickin' dogs. So Peikoff is not starting out with this axiom and then going from there rationalistically like a Platonist to try to prove something. That's bizarre. But let's go on a little bit with Vallicella's thought. He says that Peikoff uses existence to mean natural existence. And then he smuggles in the idea that God can't exist by defining nature as something which can't include God. What a bunch of stupid crap. God, where do I start? Peikoff isn't a rationalist or a Platonist like these people, Cartesian theist and apparently Bill Vallicella. Peikoff would not start with some premise and try to prove something wrong that you can never prove wrong. He would dismiss it as arbitrary. So these people just completely misunderstand the entire objectivist enterprise, completely. But furthermore, there's a contention in there that if Peikoff would admit the supernatural, if he would stop just defining everything as natural and God as outside of nature, therefore outside of existence, if he would realize that he can define nature one way, but then there can be God who's supernature, beyond nature, then you can still have nature and you can still have existence exists and still have God. So he's saying that Peikoff's just arbitrarily defining nature one way and dismissing supernature. And so let me just say that the supernatural is a fantasy like heaven and hell. The only thing that exists is what's natural. There could be nothing else. And if you think otherwise, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Shut up and leave me alone. Now, Cartesian theist thinks that this is very important, that Peikoff cannot get to his conclusion from his premise. And he's not trying to, and no objectivist ever would, but But here's what Cartesian says about it. Quote, "This is incredibly important. Because once one notes this, it means that the argument can no longer be a priori and must be a posteriori." Oh, you've trapped an objectivist out of using his a priori arguments. What an ass! Objectivists don't even believe in the a priori. How can you address objectivism when you don't know anything about it? You know more about Saturday morning cartoons. At 4 minutes into the video, he quotes Rand, that all metaphysics reduce to the primacy of consciousness or the primacy of existence. And he then claims it's a false dichotomy. Now, a false dichotomy is drawing a line between two things that can't be separated, or that shouldn't be separated or aren't separable or something like that. And then saying that you have to choose one or the other, when in fact you can't choose one or the other. Well, that doesn't apply here. Either reality is what it is and our minds have to bump around inside and figure it out, or our mind is what it is and reality just takes shape according to what our mind says and does. One or the other. Now, if I can just wish for a bowl of fruit and honey and poof, it'll just, right there in front of me, it just appears. That's the primacy of consciousness type of universe. Or if me and a million other people can pray really, really hard and some little boy who fell down a well can be saved by that. That's a primacy of consciousness universe. Or if you believe that everything outside of your mind isn't really, really real. It's actually fake in some way. The only thing that you can really, really know about and really be sure is real is inside your mind. That's the primacy of consciousness. Either the universe is that way, or it's the other way where your mind is just one more item in the universe. So there's no false dichotomy there. It's strictly true that either you believe that the universe is what it is and our minds are just one detail, or you believe that our mind is super duper and the universe is just some details off in the corner of our mind. So that's not a false dichotomy. Again, he doesn't know the first thing about objectivism. He found some quotes and he reads them as though he's only read college crap. He's obviously never read much Rand, and I wouldn't really be surprised if he had read every word that she wrote, but then I would just have to say that he had his mind turned off the whole time. One last quote I'll take from his video at 5 minutes and 56 seconds. He says, "Suppose that God exists and creates everything distinct from himself. On this supposition, each thing distinct from God is self-identical, but not independent of consciousness. Note that all I need is the mere possibility of God's existence to show the failure of entailment." So if God exists, then things are not independent of consciousness. Brilliant. But there isn't a God. No one's ever given any evidence for a God. You can't give evidence for a God. Anytime you define what God might be, you violate all rational metaphysics. A Cartesian theist can safely be dismissed for the next 1,000 years. Maybe in 1,001 years we can start listening to him again, but he's clearly such an idiotic ass that we needn't worry about him.